why is that such common English anyways? It is time! This episode, ironically enough, comes to us once more from Kenichi Yamada, and it immediately shows it by padding its length by replaying the commercial from the advanced PT models in full just to fill time. Plus, it seems to shift things back to the older paradigm somewhat, with Flashman appearing to short-circuit electronics all throughout the city, and causing situations where people can be not just blinded with overcharged lights, but electrocuted. This causes Meijin to call Neto out of class to investigate, with Mail seeing him try and sneak off. She eavesdrops on Meijin giving Neto his marching orders, and just like I said about how Neto handled this before, it causes her to try and get involved instead of informing her of it so she could stay out of the worst of harm's way. Then again, this episode more shows why she probably would not have listened, as she's back to being in her expected standard range of tsundere. But that is pretty much the point of this episode and resultantly the evolving arc. The big flaw of the whole Peter Parker syndrome mess, with how superheroes handle their secret identities, is it's been shown time and again that you can't effectively protect the people you love by keeping them at a distance. It's a defense mechanism that becomes a crippling crutch for many of them, as they come to regret not telling them, as it only further puts them in danger that they're then oblivious to. And that's especially true right now, since Neto's the only one that can perform cross-fusion to fight the Dark Lloyds in a setting where operators like Mail are so used to handling cyber threats on their own or in tandem with their friends. So, her stepping back as she needs to? It's not easy for her to accept or realize, even as Neto and Rockman track Flashman down. Then again, since Flashman's modus operandi for his attacks involves spiking the brightness of all lights in a local network, it's not that hard to track him down. See, now I'm just wondering why he never tried to do that in the games when he got cycled into harder difficulties. A light barrier makes sense for a light-themed Navi. And that light barrier is strong, a longsword not even making a dent in the damn thing. Which is where Roll intercedes. For as said, Mail followed him, oblivious to what she was getting into, and how easily Roll could be deleted fighting the Dark Lloyds while still thinking this is either a standard Navi skirmish or something of the likes they'd seen with World 3 or Gospel. Yeah, using water chips against an electric-type Navi, not the smartest of things since this isn't a universe where that'd cause him to short-circuit. Well, then I think Yuichiro fixed that defect with the hologram emitters. Worse, this causes friendly fire, forcing Rockman to log out and Flashman to get away free, allowing Flashman to return to Shademan with reports of his progress, and receive a token of appreciation for his work. Another sign of Battle Network storyline being introduced before those games actually were released. For this is where they introduce the tool that gives the Dark Lloyds not only their name, but immense power, the Dark Chip. Neto takes Rockman in to recover at Scilab, and it's here where Mail's finally tipped off to what's going on, and is remorseful for her part in this. However, something abnormal is found in Rockman's data, as Yuichiro runs the recovery programs. Seems his ultimate program has not been idle, and the repeated use of cross-fusion has generated more abnormal data that Rockman's working to assimilate, and the damage he took from Flashman has brought that to a head. Unfortunately, with Flashman back on the attack, it causes a power failure at Scilab in the midst of this, making Mail try to make up for her screw-up by holding Flashman off long enough for Yuichiro to finish Rockman's repair, even as the Dark Chip just being passively in Flashman's possession, increasing his ability to hijack electronics to unheard-of levels, as the entire city's lighting system is taken over simultaneously. Both fortunately and unfortunately, Mail and Roll have actually gotten used to fighting opponents above their pay grade, thus show off what solo Navis have time and again been shown to be their weakness. They are completely incapable of using tactics and are generally too straightforward with emphasizing power, not strategy. Thus, a tactical support fighter, holding an enemy off for the heavy hitters to intercede, that is her wheelhouse. The problem is incapacitating enemies on such a stronger tier that their heavy hitter friends struggle to damage them. Yeah, no, they're not winning this on their own, no matter the tactics they employ. But again, they don't need to win here. They just have to hold out for reinforcements to finally arrive at the last possible moment.
許さない。お前だけは残念ソードイン。ロールちゃんの分。
Type weakness attack bonus, bitch! However, this is where we see Flashman pull out the Dark Chip, and we witness what it actually does in this incarnation of the series. As was discussed before with the review of Battle Network 4, we saw two types of Dark Chips in play in that game. First, we had the ones that appeared in the custom window that appeared as super powerful, dark variants of existing battleships. Dark Sword, Dark Lance, etc., etc. These types of Dark Chips would later be seen as the standard Dark Chips we'd look to collect and find for the black market sellers in Battle Network 5 as well. However, there is a second type that were actually the first ones we saw, which in Battle Network 4 was responsible for the creation of a Dark Soul that could freely generate the standard battle chip Dark Chips. And as Battle Network 4 had not released yet, and the production staff were working off of production notes for Battle Network 4 with these things, this is presumably the type we see most prominently in Axess. The Dark Soul Dark Chips acting as a massive power-up to the Navi that uses them, both passively by their mere possession, but also actively when a Navi possessing them installs the data, it appearing to remove all of their weaknesses and ramping up their abilities even farther. The chips also seem to make their users more reckless, drunk of the rush they experience, and putting the protagonist Navis on the ropes, until Roll tries to sacrifice herself to save Rockman, which triggers the new evolution of Rockman's ultimate program via the resonance of their souls. So does anyone else find it kind of ironic that the soul form that was considered so good that it was banned from Battle Network 4 tournaments is the first Soul Unison form Rockman in the anime gains access to? Like, usually series with form change abilities ramp up to the stupidly powerful broken forms to avoid the Lensman arms race escalation. And they sure show their worth in their first outing as Roll Soul fully recovers Rockman's health and improves his capabilities to counter the Dark Soul enhanced Flashman, with a single arrow used in counterattack, which deletes the Dark Chip from his system. Though I don't think they really recognize what that does at this time. With Flashman forced into retreat, they take this back to Ichiro, who gives the pair the lowdown on this new ability Neto and Rockman now have to call on. And hey, Lensman's arms race is actually mostly avoided by the use of the soul forms in the anime, as they try to balance these forms a bit better in that their personal, unique capabilities that adapt Rockman to a given situation is far better addressed with their ability to freely use the forms at any time after they are acquired, Neto loading each soul form program into a slottable battle chip, which means I need to keep track of their use. Crap. The wrap-up. We have a 2-in-1 hero, in a literal sense, with Rockman and Roll literally fusing for the first use of Roll Soul. We have put your heart and soul into it, for the birth of the Soul Unison system. As I've said about the system, it's a very good and well-appreciated idea that floundered in Battle Network 4's use of it due to a combination of so many bad or scarce elemental battle chips, making many of the souls just unusable over others, and their abilities not making the cut for use over the chips themselves in the game. The anime doesn't have that limitation, and their free use gives them a lot more versatility to hot swap between them when the battles are at their hardest while still in cyberspace. We have light so bright we need to throw shade, to the irony of Flashman, whose entire motive is based around light, using a dark chip to enhance his light powers. There's something to be said about the brightest light shining in the deepest darkness, and without darkness light cannot shine, but I'm pretty sure they didn't mean them like this. Unlike several other of the Kenichi Yamada scripts we've had before, this one's a generally good episode, though he still struggles with actually explaining, why things happen in a given episode from a character action and motivation perspective. This one's more coming off as a Monster of the Week style adventure, which is simultaneously frustrating and expected of him, considering Yamato was also the man who gave us the prototype of the later introduced Dark Chip in the first season with Roll going all Dark Empress, and was also the one who ended up seeding the evolution of the storytelling in the series with his Rush Bio emerges into the real world as an independent Hardlight hologram story as well. Now, he introduces yet another new, plot-central thing that throws the dynamics for the show in a new direction after the prior episodes bring in a new status quo, and in turn adding to that status quo with the addition, and yet there's not much given on why that is, and why Mail and Roll act the way they do. Now, as I was getting into, there is context from the prior episodes for why that is, which is at the very least giving hand-waved one-off explanatory lines that someone paying attention would actually catch. Specifically, that Cross-Fusion's reliance on a bond caused the adaptation ability that is central to Rockman's ultimate program to begin to apply that same trait, the importance of a bond, to creating new style change forms for Rockman that supersede in versatility and power the previous style changes he had. And Mail's actions here are better contextualized by Netto not telling her what's going on, so she steps into things blind. But the episode is actually over-reliant on that context brought by serialized continuity, since those specifics are never stated to actively inform both on the why that is. Coupled with, once more, the garbage release of this show in the West Magling observing this series as actually being serialized continuity to these things. And yeah, Western markets were once again not on board this stuff as they otherwise could have been. It's still a step up from what we had before from this guy and the series, and puts another important piece in play for the storytelling going forward, as Netto and Rockman are now free to collect Soul Unison power-ups from their friends, allies, rivals, and frenemies. At least the ones that appeared in Battle Network 4 and to a lesser extent 5. Stupid decision-making that kept all but Gyro Soul of the Battle Network 5 exclusives out of the show. Yeah, I actually have no idea why Knight, Magnet, Shadow, Tomahawk, Napalm, Medi, Toad, and Conal Souls didn't actually end up getting used in the series. But in turn, without those important additions to the narrative, it's otherwise a forgettable episode with Flashman not even getting a motivation or reason to why he's overloading every line in the real world, nor much attention paid to the character dynamics on why this would suddenly create a soul form or trigger Soul Unison in the first place at this point in time. Again, there's a single line that infers Mail and Netto have been friends since forever, which actually is followed up on in a later episode focused around the two's relationship. But here, it's the same sort of there to handwave why it happens in the story, as opposed to the story hinging on those dynamics and relationships, which is why it is forgettable. It's a tale more focused on events than character to put something out there, instead of the character dynamics playing off of each other being why things occur. To its credit, it does all this by keeping the cast of characters in the range of actions they would do normally to make it all come about, just without real impetus for why they would in each instance. I have seen worse where an event occurring requires the sacrifice or contradiction of character to make it happen, but here, it's part of why it makes it forgettable. This could have been any episode that takes place at any point in the show, and it wouldn't feel any different.